Welcome to Gorilla Sports Off Court. I am your host, Liv Moods, and in just a moment, joined by Brandon Cristal. And this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American's salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. So head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another Gorilla Sports Off Court. I'm Liv Moods. That's Brandon Cristal.
Hey.
And before our mics were hot, we were just talking about predictions for tonight's matchup. I will tell you the last time I checked, yesterday, which was Easter. Happy belated Easter. Also,
Hey, what'd you do on Easter?
I actually ran into Brandon Cristal on Easter. I went with my family to the Denver Zoo, which we never do. That was just kind of it's nice out. My sister, who's about to go back to school, really wanted to go to the zoo. And I was like, let's just do it on Easter. It's
Was she
beautiful
home
weather.
for Easter break? That's a thing, or she just came home?
She actually has all of her classes online. So she has been home since my engagement.
Okay.
But now she's going to go back, do some things with some friends,
then
pack
transfer to
things
KU?
up. You know, that's not off the table.
I didn't get a chance to talk
She
to her
does
about
actually spend a lot of time in KU going on the weekends because she's got some
that.
friends
She's at
there.
Kansas State, which
She
is
is.
a far lesser school.
She's not. She doesn't love Manhattan.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
not as
many
good
people
as
that do, but
Manhattan, New York is significantly better.
I would
Manhattan,
assume
Kansas
so,
is
yes.
garbage. It's pretty
So,
fun on a game day. But
yeah,
that's
I
why.
actually bumped into BK at the Denver Zoo. I heard
Just
a
wandering
little.
around.
I heard a little voice that kept saying, "Hi, Liv. Hi, Liv."
That's how I
Hi,
talk.
Liv."
Not on mic.
Yeah, no, it wasn't him. Don't worry, it was his adorable children, and got to see them. Got to chat for a second, and then got to come into the studio today to chat a little bit about the
By the
game
way,
too.
we're opposite. We are Zoom members. Now you're all grown up, so and you
Yeah,
don't
I'm
have
not a
your
Zoom
own
member.
kids. Once you start having your own kids, you will become
It will
Zoom
be
members
different.
and museums. Trust me, it's just something you
Yeah.
do.
I had a blast. It was
The
wonderful.
zoo's great. Now it's under heavy construction, so they've tried to supplement it.
But the
But-
baby giraffe.
Baby giraffe is awesome. Doesn't have a name yet. That was the last thing you said y'all saw. First
Yep.
thing we saw. We want to make sure.
I
Baby
think it
giraffe's
should be named.
Thorn.
I was going
Or
to say
the two
Toto.
African. Well, it has three names that they're picking.
Well, I know, but I was going to put in a request for
Oh.
Toto because that's what my fiance's last name was abbreviated to when he played soccer, and the giraffe was born on our engagement day.
Well, that feels like you're making it more about you than about
I
the giraffe.
100% am.
But
I'm always making it about
but
me.
Toto's not a bad name. Like the other names are very African sounding.
Yeah.
Like they are inspired.
Which makes sense.
And then Thorn, I don't know why they settled on those three, but you can vote at the Denver Zoo Conservatory website.
There
Enough
you
about
go.
the zoo, though. Although keep contributing because it's a cool zoo.
Right. Well, either way, we're here. We're back in the studio. We're talking game 2, doing a little preview. We can talk a little bit of overall playoffs talk as well because we've now seen the first round, both in the West and in the East. So we can kind of talk through all of
games.
that. First games. Yeah, I guess the start of the first round. The first round has began for all teams now. But BK, I saw that the Clippers as of yesterday were a favorite by like 1.5. It was virtual pick'em, but they were the favorite.
I might as well check it.
I'm not sure where they stand now, but do
Do you have a website you'd prefer I use, a sports book?
I mean, I use FanDuel, but
Makes
you can
sense.
use whatever you'd like.
They pay you.
Yeah.
I use FanDuel a fair amount too, now that no one else is paying me. In fact, that's our go-to. They are still 1.5 point favorites.
Yep.
Over under 218 dropped. I believe the over under game 1 was 2.25, right? It's 225.
I think so.
Yeah, and when you're like, well, second best defense in basketball in the Clippers, one of the best offenses in the Nuggets, but certainly
Streaky.
yeah,
times.
and they'll lock down on defense as they did when they needed to.
Right.
The under, even with overtime, still hit. You were at 222, so you're obviously sweating over under when you go to overtime.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
so they dropped it by 7 tonight because like, oh, these teams have now figured each other out. It's going to be even harder to score. I'll go the other way. I think that it may go over 218.
Well, here's the hope. You know, I was thinking about this before we get into like how we think this game is going to play out. I was thinking about there was a lot that the Nuggets did wrong in that game and won. So in my opinion, if the Nuggets can just refine some of those things, you know, slowing down James Harden a little bit earlier, getting a little more defensive effort in that first quarter, especially if you can get just 10 more points from Michael Porter Jr., which is not too much to ask for.
Just 10 points.
Throw that out. Right. Just get 10. You don't even have to get 10 more. Just get 10. Having a Michael Porter Jr. who's supposed to be contributing to that volume 3-point shooting and has 3 points the whole game, you won Don't expect to see that every game in this series. You surely hope you don't see that, but I would imagine we get a little bit more offensive production from MPJ in this game. So, given all the things that the Nuggets did wrong in game 1 and still managed to win, and that's why when we had our post-game show and we brought BK on, I actually asked him, this felt a little bit like, I'm not alluding to the fact that it's going to be a sweep because this Clippers team is very, very good, but it felt a lot like those Lakers games that the Nuggets have seen in the playoffs where you get outperformed by the Lakers and or in this case the Clippers almost the entire game and you still manage to have that win. And I do think that's just a testament to the clutch side of this Nuggets team. While they had a lot of things going wrong this season, they are still a clutch team. You know, when you've got Jokic out there, Jamal out there, even Russ made some mistakes. You were kind of getting nervous, but then he came up very big for this Nuggets team when it mattered the most. So it really did feel like the Clippers played some of their best basketball and the Nuggets played some of their worst and the Nuggets still won. So it does feel like, I think at halftime, the Nuggets were like 40% from the field, under 30, like around 30% from the three, and we're only trailing by single digits. And I think one of the broadcasters was talking about the fact that if I'm a Clippers player, I'm not feeling great about only being up by single digits to a team that is way, way, way underperforming. And I felt like that's what we saw in game 1. So do you anticipate, BK, that we get some of that refining by the Denver Nuggets in game 2?
Well, I think the point that's made yesterday by Aaron Gordon, and I did a pregame preview that you can see on our social channels, certainly on X, formerly known as Twitter, where I referenced what AG said, that, hey, both teams make adjustments.
Yeah.
So X's and O's do
Yep.
matter, but he didn't finish the saying that it's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmys and Joes, like the players you have, because they have good coaches. They have Jeff Van Gundy, who's a great coach, as their lead assistant. They have Tyronn Lue. They have former Nuggets head coach Brian Shaw there. And so they're going to make adjustments. Though the one thing, though, that might be worth keeping an eye on, and I was talking about the over-under, is Tyronn Lue harped on yesterday, and then again today he was kind of asked about it. They didn't get into their sets until 13, 14 seconds left in the shot clock, which was the second lowest of the entire season for them. They want to play quicker. That, I think, actually will help the Nuggets too.
Yep.
Yes, the Nuggets can slow it down, but playing quicker isn't necessarily going to be better for Harden and Kawhi. And Joker doesn't play quick anyway, so it doesn't really change other than on offense to get the ball out. I know we're going to get to that too with Jeff Van Gundy holding on to it, or Ty Lue or whatever, because it really happened twice. They made a big deal about Van Gundy, but even Ty was being weird about it. So because the Clippers are going to look to get into their offense more and they want to run more, Ben Simmons talked about that this morning. They want to get out and run more. That's just going to, in theory, lead to more offense. I'm not saying that the buckets are going to go in, but you're just going to get more shots and more possessions for each team. And so I think
pace,
a quicker pace will be fine for the Nuggets, especially for a guy like Russell Westbrook.
Yep.
And that just is going to lead to more points. So the over at 218 may end up being way too low. I guess we'll see, because they still have to make the plays. And still got good defenders on both sides. So that's something to keep an eye on.
To be honest, I kind of like the over, BK. I like the over. I think, given what we saw in game 1, overtime and the under still hit, I do think you get a little bit more offense and a little bit quicker out of this game. The Nuggets had a slow start in game 1. There was a moment in time where I think I wanted to turn the game off. I grabbed the remote. It was in my hand. I was hovering my thumb over the power button.
At 51-36, was that when it was?
Yeah. There was just a couple moments in this one where I felt like they are not, the momentum was not in their favor. You were there, though. At what point do you feel like you felt the momentum switch? I would say, just from my perspective, they got some of their groove in that second quarter, for sure. Is that kind of the same sentiment it felt like? Could you feel that in Ball Arena?
Yeah, well, at 51-36, and I'm on a number of group chats with friends, but one with my local poker crew. There's about 20 guys in that chat, and a bunch of them are Nuggets fans. And so like, oh, this team's not ready to play. This is going to be a short series. I'm like, well, calm down. And this is kind of in the first quarter, like I often do with you. It's like there's a lot of basketball.
Relax.
They're feeling each other out like a prize fight. And then a couple of minutes later, it's 51-36. I'm like, well, maybe they are going to lose. I don't know, because it didn't
felt that way.
It didn't look like they were ready to play. And you're like, okay, they could get run out of this one. And then they're behind the 8 ball the whole time. And so I think that it's a credit to them that they didn't play anywhere near their best, although they did get to the line a lot and were 21-27. The Clippers were just, I think they were a little better percentage wise, but they were just 12-16. So you got 11 more free throws. That's going to help.
And we were missing some of those free points especially late in the game. Lord have mercy. Can't have that.
Yeah,
Cannot have it.
You got to make clutch free throws, but the Clippers weren't even getting there to take them.
Yeah, true.
And now the Clippers made 3 more threes. The Nuggets under 10 threes, we know doesn't normally work out in their favor the way 12 and more certainly does. And so tonight, when we talk about MPJ, if he can get going, he certainly would contribute there. But you got threes from guys you're not always counting on. AG's been great this year, but he makes a big three. Christian Brown, and of course, Russ's corner three. It's also worth noting, I guess it's the right corner, but even the left corner, Russ is like 50% or close to it from the right corner, right in front of the bench, or opposite, depending. And then 37% from the left corner, which is where he made that three from. And then he's like 20% kind of extended from free throw line and up, or even a little bit further. So as much as you're nervous when Russ shoots threes, if you're shooting in the corner, you got to feel a little bit better.
Absolutely. I want to ask you about a moment that maybe you didn't see, but my mom actually got to go to this game because, as you know, I'm friends with Peyton Watson's uncle. P. Watt had an extra ticket. He's like, Brantley, does Liv want this ticket? I was like, I had a fiance was not feeling great all day. I had some things to do around the house. Also wanted to just sit, do some live. When you're in the game as like a fan in a seat, you kind of get distracted and you're not really doing your job anymore. It just happens. It is what it is. And I was worried about that given the nature of the game. So I was like, okay, so I gave the ticket to my mom. Ended up being a really great game. She got to watch. But at one point I'm texting her going, sorry, this might not be super fun, but I wanted you to go because she loves the Nuggets. But she said she saw a moment where Jamal Murray was like irate, yelling in the faces of his teammates in a huddle. He seemed very, very frustrated. Did you sense any frustration and I don't remember, and she didn't tell me what time in the game this was. It might have been late. I feel like she said it was later in the game. Did you sense any frustration? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I love seeing Jamal Murray step into this leadership role and kind of take initiative because I do think he in the playoffs is just a different breed. Did you sense any frustration from Jamal Murray in that game?
No, but I didn't see that moment, so I'm not going to discount what your mom said. It's hard during a timeout because when I'm goofing around with whoever I'm talking to, I think goofing around, but like, this game, D-Mac sat next to me, so he and I were BSing the whole time because he's one of my, lifelong friends now, almost 20 years working around each other together. So we're just shooting. Mostly it's me talking and him reacting. And there's a cute, swear to God, the cutest baby you'll ever see, like 3 months old, right in front of me, the headphones on. So like during
Adorable.
a timeout, it's hard. The one thing that I noticed, and it's a topic that we're going to certainly get into, I brought it up with you and Shelby, was MPJ's lack of engagement completely.
Yeah.
But where I'm sitting, so I'm on the side where I can see the Nuggets bench, because to let people know kind of where the media sits if you're not really paying attention.
Right.
The tunnel where the team comes out is where like the beat reporters for both teams will sit typically, and print reporters for the most part. Every now and then an NBA scout will be down there. Then there's at the top of the lower level above where the Nuggets come out, there's seats, and directly across, so kind of behind the Nuggets bench and up top of the lower level, that's the other media seating. And that's where I've sat the last however many years. So you got a great shot at the bench.
Right.
But you don't always see with tall guys standing around if Jamal's laying into guys.
I guess he was just very animated, which you don't always see from him, and you know that.
And so that kind of speaks to the conversation that we've seen now, whether it was Aaron Gordon being asked about it on the radio broadcast by Kaz, Adelman talking about it, me asking him about it again. But these players taking ownership, that's something Sean Payton always talks about. The best teams, the players are the ones driving that bus.
Yep.
And with Joker, I think Shams even said that on the TV broadcast on ESPN, that Joker has never had a problem speaking up, but that he's even more comfortable now. And I think that part of that may be, and he won't ever kind of really admit to this, is that he had so much deference and respect for Michael Malone because Michael Malone's the only coach Joker knew in the NBA from the time he got here.
Right.
And so it's almost like, okay, what dad says goes. Oh, but now dad's out of the house.
Right.
Parents got divorced, whatever. And I'm a man, and I've been a man, and I don't even live in the house. I have my own house. But when I come home, it's dad's house, or maybe dad passed away, whatever. Now I have the chance. I'm trying to be morbid about it, but I'm saying to where my voice will be heard with how the family is going to be run to make sure it's great for everybody. And so I realize it's not exactly that dynamic, but the point being, Joker is not only more comfortable, he was already comfortable, but that with Malone not there, he knows that it's not only his team, but what he says will matter and will be heard, and he won't be stepping on DA's toes,
right?
Because DA is like another brother,
yeah,
who's also now, maybe dealing with the day-to-day that's home, living with mom, and having to deal, but you're the one that makes the most money and has to come in and fix
Absolutely.
stuff. So
Well,
in that dynamic, again, I know that analogy is but
no,
so
I get it.
Joker, Jamal, AG, certainly Russ is going to be vocal. These guys being vocal is only a good thing, even if they're mad. You got to know that it's not personal.
Yeah, and I do think, I do think most of the time it's not personal, but it does make me wonder if some of what my mom may have seen, the animation by Jamal Murray and the frustration by Jamal Murray, had to do with MPJ. There was a reporter that asked Nikola Jokic, how do you keep Porter engaged?
That
How
reporter, I think you know that reporter. Yeah, it was me.
I know.
That was me. A reporter.
How do you listen, BK? I have to keep people on their toes.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
it was BK. How do you help Porter stay engaged? And his response was based on this quote that I'm reading here, if you're not going to be engaged right now, then you're not supposed to be playing this sport. And I'm not saying that that's a jab at MPJ, but I do that was Nikola Jokic's way of saying it's not my responsibility to make this guy want to be involved here. And so, do you feel like it was him not being engaged, or do you think it was just a bad basketball day? Did you feel like you were seeing a checked out version? You just mentioned that during a timeout, it looked like he was pretty disengaged. Do you think that that's something that's a result of maybe some tensions or some issues, or
the three most interesting people on the team are the three people who have been here long. I mean, Russ certainly is interesting, but Nikola Jokic is so complex, and trying to understand him. You really should read Mike Singer's book. I know you talked to Mike a while back when he came in. Yeah, and so that'll give you a little more insight into who Joker is, and then listen to the way his teammates talk about him. You know, Christian Brown's the one that lets us know how much he really loves basketball and is always watching basketball, as much as we think he's watching other stuff, and horse racing and all that.
Right.
Now he does watch a lot of horse racing.
I was gonna say, I'm sure he sprinkles that in there.
We do know that,
of course.
Jamal is very fascinating because of how he goes into a season.
Yep.
And it feels like he just builds up, and he doesn't really care that he's not. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't care. He's not an all-star, but that's something that seems to be talked about more on the outside. And then when it's showtime in the playoffs, he becomes a stone cold killer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not that during the season, but you're like, we'll see this in his night. Again, I mentioned I was sitting with D-Mac, and he's 4 of 15. I'm like, yeah, but this dude could get it going anytime. Bang, 2 threes right away, and all of a sudden he's having a much better day.
Yep.
My parlay didn't hit, but it had him getting to 20. There was a couple of reasons it didn't hit, and he stuck on 19. I was like, overtime was going to help him.
Both of my bets did not.
And then Michael Porter Jr. is in some ways maybe the most fascinating, because you're talking about a kid that could not be more opposite of Joker or even Jamal. And I know Jamal was a top 10 pick, but MPJ was the best high school player in the country, period, in his grade, and went to Missouri because of family ties. His dad ends up on the staff there, all that. But he's out in Seattle, the best player in the country. He's next year's number one. Not like, there might be a guy in Europe, but in his draft year, and we could look at who the number one was. But going into it, he's going to be at Mizzou for a year. Well, he gets hurt 3 games in and hurts his back, and then gets drafted here, falls to 19 or whatever, and has to work his way back to health. We know it comes and goes, but has missed plenty of basketball, has the personal issues with his brother killing someone in a drunk driving incident. Last year, his other brother in the NBA gets involved in a gambling scandal and is now banned from the league, and, criminal element to that too. And just, he seems to be self-aware and aware of what's going on. And when he played poorly in the finals, he's like, I'm not going to shoot that bad next year.
Right.
Because he was really active on defense and on the glass, and contributed that way. But this is a guy that probably looks at it and says, I should be a 5-time All-Star, a 10-time All-Star, because of the way he was brought up. His body has failed him. The family stuff's its own thing.
Definitely.
But so because of that, I don't expect that that's a long answer to he's totally disengaged. He was 100% disengaged the other day. I do give David Adelman credit, though, because when I asked him about it, he said, look, it's not fair to Mike if in 40 minutes of real time, he's like, I'm not talking game time. He hadn't done anything in 40 minutes. So if I put him in overtime and he's cold, but the ball gets swung to him and he's got no juices, I'm not saying shooters don't shoot and you come in 1 minute into the game, but 1 minute into the game, you've been warmed up and you're going.
Right.
At 40 minutes and you've dealt with the emotion. So
it was a very smart perspective that he shed light on.
I think Joker, though, is right, but I don't think that if they thought Jamal or that MPJ was totally disengaged, then they'll bench him and they won't play him.
Right.
It's not that. But Joker's point is like, it's not my job to go talk to you. And they all said during the game, they're not going to say anything. That is the job of DeAndre Jordan, Dario Saric, the vets on the bench, even Russ when he's on the bench, and the assistants that are down there to keep his ass engaged.
Yeah.
Or any player. And that's the way I asked it to Jamal and to Joker. I was like, look, I'm not picking on MPJ. Tonight
Right.
it was MPJ. Generally speaking, though, because it might be Russ. It might be CB that gets benched because his night's not working.
We had a social clip posted just yesterday where I talked about the fact that it could be anyone on any given night. I think that's Adelman's approach is whoever's got the momentum and he feels like can close the game out the best, that's who they're going to play. And it has very little to do with who's been on the team longest, who gets paid the most. That is, and I kind of want to pop that top comment up on the screen, Jet, where you mentioned it was a slap in the face to MPJ. I just don't think that's correct at all. I think
this has happened before.
Right. This is a business. Like this team wants to win games. And if Michael Porter Jr. is not doing his job in a game, and this is not me trying to be disrespectful to him, but 26 minutes of play, you score 3 points. You're not really doing your job against the Clippers team. So I don't think it's a slap in the face to MPJ at all. I think cause and effect is exactly what that was. You weren't doing what the team needed you to do, and somebody else was.
Game 5 of the NBA Finals in Miami, Christian Brown goes nuts. So what happens when Michael Porter Jr. doesn't close out games?
Right.
But there are other games where Jamal Murray hasn't closed out a game.
Correct. It's going to be someone new every game.
And so, do you want your 5 starters, if they're all playing great, to close? Almost always.
Of course.
It changes a little with specifically Manu Ginobili. They didn't start him ever, and he was the 6th man of the year a few times. But he finished every game.
Right.
Because you had Tony Parker, Hall of Famer, and Manu, Hall of Famer, at some point Kawhi, but also Tim Duncan. But Manu closed. You need to earn the right, though, to be a closer.
You got to earn it. Yep.
And it's game to game. It's not, oh, we pay you the most, you're starting. We're trying to win this game tonight. And on Monday, game 2, whatever, the next game, we may need you, MPJ. You're rolling. You've got 20 in the first half. You're definitely closing the game out. But Jamal sucks and Russ is closing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Or CB sucks and Russ is closing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Or Russ sucks and Peyton Watson's closing. And so I think that...
And this is going to be a big change for the Nuggets because I don't think we've seen a lot of this season.
No,
there's been a lot of very confusing rotations and lineups and combinations of guys where now we're probably putting the pieces together and realizing some of those combinations may have been out of spite. Some of those combinations may have been intentional and not in a good way. Who knows? Who's to say? But what we do know for a fact is that Adelman doesn't really feel a huge need to reward guys unless they earn it.
Or coddle them.
Correct. They're not babies. They're not babies. MPJ is putting pressure on himself. Everyone is wanting him to shoot, not be an all-star, not be a max player, even though he's being paid like one. Shoot and make your shot. Yeah, I don't even think it's about making every shot that he takes.
No, it's about taking more shots. But
take more shots. But also, we've seen seasons. The championship run was one of them where his threes weren't falling, but he was attacking the glass. He was playing with this super overwhelming defensive effort that made up for the fact that his threes weren't falling and his offense wasn't at its highest level. So I think once you start to get that, I hate using the word insecure when it comes to men because they just feel like it's like the biggest and rudest statement of the year. But I don't mean it that way. I just mean he's not playing confident basketball. And in my opinion, if your shots aren't falling, if your offense isn't rolling and you're not finding your rhythm, make an impact in another way, because we've seen MPJ specifically do that before. When his threes aren't landing, they're not falling, he finds a way to make an impact. It felt like he just wasn't able to do anything really in game 1.
Yeah, and so I don't say that it's a get over yourself kind of thing, but
it kind of is.
Well, and that's what Adam is saying. But MPJ needs to be able to channel what he did in 2023 on the run to the NBA championship. Yep. And that's just go make plays, go be effective.
Plays. Yep.
You're either covering or being covered by Kawhi Leonard a lot. Make his life as hard as possible. And I think they did. They doubled him pretty well. They at least were ultra aggressive. He only had, I say only 22 points. Kawhi can go get 35 like it's nothing. I know James had 35 or whatever it was. And those guys are going to get theirs. My thing with Harden, and this can't be original, but make him go right a little bit. He's so left-hand dominant, and he's so great scoring the basketball from every level, and has been his whole career. Not that he can't score going right, but it's just not as easy. Just make him go right a little more. And it felt like
uncomfortable.
It felt like they never did. I know it shouldn't be that simple, but
sometimes it does feel that simple. It definitely feels that simple from my couch. I know I can acknowledge that. I'm self-aware at least to know that everything looks simple from my living room. I can't imagine it's that simple when you're doing it. But BK, let's take a quick little break, and we'll circle back to the MPJ stuff, because I do think there's much more to discuss on all of that. But of course, we have to spend just a moment talking about our friends over at Accurate America. Okay. You guys, you never know when the weather is going to hit, especially in the month of April here in Colorado, and even May sometimes. I actually had a friend reach out to me on Instagram. She's like, "Is it snowing there?" I'm like, "Yes, this is normal for us." You never know how these storms are going to come, when they're going to come. So it's better to just be prepared. Do not get caught scrambling at the last second, battling with your neighbors for an appointment, and being left with no other option than one of those storm chasing roofers that comes to your town after all of the turmoil has already happened. Make your call before the storm. Call Accurate America at 303-900-ROOF. And they'll partner with you on navigating your insurance. They'll provide quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using their latest technology and 3D modeling. So, like I said, they are willing to work with you. Your work is guaranteed as long as you own your home. Don't scramble at the last minute. Call before the storm. Call Accurate America at 303-900-ROOF. Accurate America, experts in roofing and interiors. BK, let's move on to X factors from game one. I want to talk about general X factors in terms of like elements in the game, and I can go first. And then I want to talk about X factor players. First, we'll start with like the elements. That's like the best way I can put it. For me, late in the game, especially, something I was very, very happy to see, and I think made a huge difference for this Nuggets team, was the offensive rebounding. You're not going to make every shot, but following your shot, hustling to get the ball back, give yourself an opportunity. Second chance points are huge. We know that can be the difference maker sometimes. Offensive rebounding to me was huge for this Denver Nuggets team in terms of, especially late in that game, in terms of keeping them in the game and also pulling them ahead a little bit. What was your element, if you will, in game one that you felt like was the X factor for the Nuggets?
Well, I think the commitment to defense and the and the communication and continuing even as things weren't going well early, because the Clippers weren't blowing them out.
Right.
It wasn't what we saw with Oklahoma City, with the Kings Friday night against the Mavs, with the Lakers and T-Wolves, with Minnesota running him out of the gym. It wasn't that. It was Nuggets would play okay defense. Clippers would get an okay shot. Sometimes it was a layup, or it was, easy put back here and there, something easy for Zubats. And the Nuggets would just come down and not make a shot. It wasn't that they were turning the ball over. They weren't playing terrible, but there were stretches, and that's kind of what happened when it got to 51-35, or 51-36, where it's like, okay, this has been a stretch where 4 or 5 times down, the Clippers have found a bucket and the Nuggets haven't. But so as they got more locked in at the end of that quarter specifically, and Adelman touched on that post game, that's really what allowed them to build that momentum. But it also just made them more active on the offensive glass, because I was watching with a team that's that good on defense and that big, they're going to rebound pretty well in general. And the Nuggets had like 5 offensive rebounds, maybe through 3 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, this is not a day where
it was the late game ones.
And part of it is Zubats too. He's big and understands Joker, and now Kawhi's bigger too, and Batum's out there and he's big. But because how many times do we see Joker get 3 rebounds on a play because he's kind of tipping it to himself? And so I think
that's where the people love to yell stat pattern.
But he's not padding. He's literally just the ball.
I agree, but
at the same time, that's where Russell Westbrook comes in, because
he was huge.
There's not a better guard that we've maybe ever seen in the history of the game that goes and yanks big time rebounds out of the sky amongst the trees. Mm-hmm. And he did it again the other night. And that's why it's like, okay, you talk about the full Russ experience. He's going to come up with some crazy loose ball plays, fine rebounds, understanding the angle that very few other players, regardless of position, but certainly as 6'4" guards, make. And so that's what allowed them to get back in the game and win. They ended up winning the offensive glass battle 12-11 and winning rebounding by 1. And in a game that's a 2-point game, every little thing is going to count.
Yeah, and we saw many times this season where rebounding for the Nuggets was not super common. It felt like it was one of those things that they just couldn't get their footing on. It just felt like it was just.
But you could also tell.
I don't know. It was tough.
You could also tell there was an activity level where Jamal chased down a loose ball, or I say loose ball, a loose rebound that like
there was hustle. There was urgency.
There was just a sense of urgency that we haven't seen all year, and we did see it from about the end of the second quarter on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see that going forward, then this
good.
won't be the longest series.
Yeah, no. And we're going to spend 2 more seconds talking about the X Factor humans, the athletes that we saw in game 1. And then we'll talk a little bit about
robots.
The robots.
Oh, you said humans. So I was like, well, what comes next? Robots.
Oh, yeah, robots. Some of
I was like, I don't know.
BK has dad jokes every once in a while that go way over my
That
head.
wasn't even a dad. I was more just like, because you used the word humans, so I didn't know what you meant. You're talking about the players, and we're going to get into coaches?
I meant to say athletes.
Okay, athletes.
Yeah, the humans, not the robots. Yes. Let's talk about the X Factor athletes, though.
Are you saying robots aren't athletes?
Yeah, no, right? Let's talk about the X Factor athletes in this one. For me, you talked about their defensive. What was the word you used?
Connectivity.
No, that's definitely not
aggressiveness.
The word you used. No. Commitment.
Oh, just commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Defensive commitment. And one of the X Factor players, in my opinion, it's kind of 2 of them together, but I got to give a lot of love to Christian Braun in this game.
Yeah.
Defensively, he was doing everything you wanted him to do in this game. And there's a big job at hand trying to slow down guys like James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, you name it. This team is stacked with talent, the Clippers. Any which way you look, you're going to have someone that can score. And I felt like CB made he was committed defensively quite a bit. And really, really, I think sometimes throughout this season, I have noticed moments where I feel like there's a little lack of defensive awareness at times. Felt like he was way more locked into that, way more defensively aware in this game. And then you get just the cherry on top to make him my X Factor for sure was that big 3 in overtime. And I talked a little bit with Shelby right after the game, and we had discussed with CB the confidence that it takes to take a 3 like that, and he's not our best 3-point shooter. His 3-point shooting is very, very inconsistent, but you've got to have a certain level of confidence to take that shot in OT. You've also got to have a certain level of support from your teammates around you to take that shot. So I don't know, really felt like CB in this game was my X Factor. If I had to pick one and not make it obvious, I would go with Christian Braun. I was really, really pleased with what we saw out of him in game 1.
It is an actual trait to have the ability to take and make big shots.
Yes.
Not just to make them, but to actually have the willingness to want to take that shot. And so I'll tell you a couple of names that come in mind in the history of the league, because you think about Big Shot Bob and Robert Horry and all those shots he hit, whether he was with the Rockets or the Lakers or the Spurs. I mean, you didn't get named Big Shot Bob for not making big shots, and he has 7 rings to show for it. But he had that willingness. So I used to do a show with Kenny Smith a million years ago at Sirius XM when it was just called Sirius. And he would talk about he's on a team with Big Shot Bob, who did have a propensity of that, Vernon Maxwell or Clyde Drexler, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kenny was a great shooter, but Sam Cassell thought he was the one that should take the last shot no matter what. Sam Cassell didn't care that he had a Hall of Fame center and that he had all-stars around him. He thought he should take and make that shot. I go to a fellow Kansas Jayhawk like myself and Christian Braun. Mario Chalmers was a big part of the Heat's run with LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh, and they even had Ray Allen. And I remember D Wade or LeBron, while I'm talking about Rio, they called Mario Rio. Like, Rio thinks he should take that shot. Now, against Memphis in the NCAA finals, he did take and make that shot, but he thinks he should take it every time. And I don't know if Christian Braun thinks that every time. Russ, for as good as he is and as aggressive as he is, I get defense had something to do with it, but he didn't take that shot. Jamal has that, and certainly Joker has it.
Yep.
But not every player has it. Kawhi definitely has it. James Harden has it, but not every player has it. And the more you get, and that's something Adam's talked about, the more you get guys that are just willing to take open shots, because that was a big shot that CB hit. It was a huge shot that Russ hit, but they were wide ass open.
Yeah, they were.
And so that doesn't mean you have to shoot it, because a lot of times guys will drive in or they'll just kick it again. Maybe, but you have to be willing to step in and take and make those shots. And that's something that Michael Porter Jr. does have. So if given the opportunity, now they won't slack off him the way they slack off Russ. They cover Russ in the half court a lot of times, kind of the way the Nuggets cover Zubats, where they know Zubats can operate inside, but Joker has no problem doubling. That's something too, is they did a good job blitzing Harden especially.
Yeah.
And like, okay, by the time it gets around, AG will be over to Zubats, and if we give up backside layup, fine. But you got to want to take and make big shots.
Yeah. And CB definitely had those moments for him, and you saw the same thing with Russ. You see it a lot with Russ. You just cross your fingers and hope that it goes in,
because sometimes he's attacking, which is what Adelman talked about.
Right.
He's like, he lives in attack mode.
But you will never ever be upset with the effort and the attack that Russell Westbrook brings, which is why
you can be upset with it, but you just have to understand it.
See, no, I'm never going to be upset with the attack and the effort.
Because at the very end, he tried to do it. He's like, oh, I can make this a 5-point game, and he could, or a 4-point game.
Sometimes it's the tail end of the attack and the effort that you're just like, but
yeah, you're going in 1-on-4. Like, yes, there is.
I'd rather have a guy that's always going for it and putting in the effort than a guy that plays timid. Because that's kind of, I think, what we're getting out of MPJ. I hope things change. I hope by game 2, he's got that confidence back and he's taking those big shots and he's playing with, again, just make plays, MPJ. It doesn't have to be the threes. It doesn't have to be your normal shot. Just make plays, whatever that looks like. Because if I remember correctly, this team, not this exact team, but the Nuggets won a championship when MPJ was not his hottest from the 3-point line, but he was still making plays. Okay, final prediction. Who's winning tonight, BK?
I like the Nuggets again. I'm not going to pick against them at home, especially. And that's something where I know we're going to talk about the other series a little bit. And
we are.
You can find the clip. It's out there. I reposted it, I think, even on TikTok. But the T-Wolves went into LA, and our pal Anthony Edwards was asked about playing in hostile environments. He's like, yeah, it was a good crowd, but he's like, this is nothing. I've had to play in Denver. And basically acknowledging that Denver, just by saying that Denver's the toughest place to play. So you're a mile above sea level, and you've got the best player in the world and pretty good defense.
Yeah.
And they ran, obviously, the Nuggets out of the gym a few times in this building, but it wasn't because the crowd wasn't into it. And so I think, Nuggets fans, tip your cap to yourselves, to each other, that in Anthony Edwards' mind, you've got the toughest place to play. But because of that, and even though the Clippers are going to make adjustments, I think the Nuggets also make adjustments. I might not only bet the Nuggets over, I may sprinkle something on MPJ's overs too, on over threes and over points.
Well, why don't I tell you where they're at right now, and then you can decide what you want to do with them. I will tell you, MPJ's line is currently set at 12.5.
12.5. So that's a couple threes, couple layups, couple free throws.
10 more points. Like I said, I jokingly at the top of the show said, give us 10 more points, and that's basically what he needs in order to hit the over.
Like, it's crazy to think the third highest paid guy on the team, can he get 13 points and 8 rebounds? Because I bet you his rebounds are 6.5, 7.
I literally walked in here. BK, MPJ's rebounds are.
It's probably 6.5.
You're guessing 6.5. The correct answer is 5.5.
So it's 5.5. I'd certainly bet the over on that, assuming he's not hurt, and I don't think he's hurt. Now he's always dealing with the back and drop.
I think the only one that has potential to be on the injury or was added to the injury report was Aaron Gordon. It says he's probable, but he was added.
No, he's going to play. Actually, we should. Real quick, before we move on and just look at the rest of the league, before we get out of here, AG playing second team center.
Yeah.
I think against this team works totally fine.
Does.
Because their second team centers are either Derek Jones Jr., who's basically a wing, or Batum or Ben Simmons. Like, they don't have a second team center after Zubats.
He was my second X factor, by the way.
Yeah. The second Zubats is out, AG, and I appreciate that when AG's starting, and because of the switches, Zubats is never on him. He's bigger than everybody. Now, Kawhi is going to give him the hardest time because of just how big Kawhi is. But when he has Norman Powell on him, it's like, get AG the ball, just like we saw, whether it was against the Lakers, whomever. If he has a smaller matchup against the Heat in the finals, Gabe Benson's on him, go.
Right.
And so you'll continue to get that. But the one thing we didn't see much of that we know is in his arsenal this year is AG. He did make one really big three on the left wing.
He did.
But a couple more big threes from AG is certainly possible, especially at home. So whether that's tonight or if there's a game 5, which is very likely.
Didn't he have one game, and probably maybe more than one, but one that I can recall right now, one game this season where he had like 5 or 6 threes?
I think he had 7. He had 7.
7.
I think he tied his
7
career
of 10,
high.
I think.
Yeah, he was 7 of 10, which quick math tells me that's 70%.
Yeah, that's good math, BK.
You can mark this down. If there's any game in which Aaron Gordon makes 7 threes anytime during the playoffs, whether that's against the Clippers or whether that's against any opponent they might see, the Nuggets are winning that game. There's not going to be a game where he makes 7 threes and they don't win.
I agree with that. I do think BK oftentimes will text me in the middle of the game, and like if the Nuggets are up by like 20 and they're like not missing at all, he's like, if the Nuggets play like this every game, they'll probably win a championship.
I'm just letting you know.
Of course.
I'm letting you know that if they keep up that 20-point margin against all their opponents in every game,
Common sense will tell you
I've
they'll win
covered
another
sports for a long
championship.
time, so that's why I just like to
Right.
let Liv know.
It's
Hey,
really
they
good to
keep
get his
this up.
insight sometimes.
But
Like,
part of
it's
it is that
crucial.
you get so emotional with
I
how they
do.
play that it's
No,
like,
sometimes I'm texting BK and it's like he has to do a little bit of like talking me off the ledge because I do get very emotional. But I think it's been an emotional year. It really has.
Clearly.
It's felt emotionally exhausting because it's been hard to track, hard to follow. This season has felt like it's been all over the place, which has made it really fun, but it's also made it really exhausting. Is there a comment you want to?
Well, yeah, the one from Only Morale about AG against OKC, Jason, right there. BK, do you think AG playing second team center is going to work against OKC? Obviously, some skepticism. That's the problem with you guys. You want to win a game by any means necessary. That's just temporary. But no, that's the
Only
point.
Morale's a hater.
That's fine. You're allowed to hate, but there's not a law that says AG is the all-time second team center.
No.
Or that Russ is going to close every game.
No, there's not.
Or that Michael Porter Jr. is not going to play. Like, that's the beauty of a playoff series is you have to play each series and then worry about the next. And if your team is versatile enough or
One
just
game
so
at a time.
good, if your team's just so good, then you can beat anybody no matter what. But that happens. Jokic had 60 and lost. I didn't say every game Joker scores 60, they're going to win. Because there's a bunch of games where he scored over 40 and they've lost. He scored 50 against the Suns in the playoffs and they lost?
Well, because I think the expectation is you always get a high level of production from Jokic. What you have to wonder about often is what is his supporting cast doing? And so to your point, BK, if you get a game where Aaron Gordon's lighting it up from the 3-point line, that's more help than Jokic is getting on most nights. You couple that with Jokic's domination and some clutch threes by Jamal and CB in transition. And yeah, I think you're looking at if you ever get Aaron Gordon scoring 7 threes, feels pretty safe to say it's a win.
Right. And that's all I was getting at. And so OKC with Chet and Hartenstein, just they're way bigger. And obviously the Williams kid's a bit, you're going to have to play that difference. So that's going to be when you do rely on DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
And you do throw Zeke Naji out there for a couple minutes if you have to. Maybe you play Peyton Watson a little more.
Right.
But yeah, you're not going to stick to this lineup and this rotation for every game. So I think that's kind of short-sighted. You win game one, however you needed to do that, and you did. So now you go to game two, and you're going to do whatever it takes to win tonight. You asked me, so I'll ask you. I do think the Nuggets win. I do think it goes over. I don't think they win going away. But I won't be surprised if it's not a one-bucket game. If it's like, oh, they're up 7 and they win by 4 because they make a BS3 or a layup and a free throw or something. It feels like they're going to win the game, and it's not going to come down to last-second play either way.
To be honest with you, I like this morning when I woke up, I was like, I feel like the series will be tied by tonight. But the more that I've thought about it, and I know that the issues we saw from, this is what I think is the most confusing thing about game one. The things we've worried about with the Nuggets all season were not the issues in this game.
Other than threes being taken and made. They only made 9.
But I'm talking the largest issue for me all season has been their defense. They were very committed to the defense. That was not my worry. Outside of the first quarter where the defensive efforts were pretty bad and maybe the start of the second quarter, they started to figure things out. They got into a rhythm and a groove, and they were really committing to their defense on a different level at the tail end of that second quarter and then throughout the rest of the game. So the things that you were the most worried about being issues for this Nuggets team in the playoffs weren't the issues that I saw in game one. What we saw was Michael Porter Jr. not being there, easy free throws being missed, little things. I really think that game 1 to game 2 is just about refining, because in the game while watching it, this was one of those games where when you're in it, when you're watching it, you're like, I hate this. I want this game to be over. And then once it's done, you're like, that game was so fun, because you knew how it ended and you knew that they won. But that entire game, it felt like the Clippers were winning that game. It felt like they deserved to win that game.
Sure.
They outplayed the Nuggets for almost the entire game. So there's a lot of things I think the Nuggets can refine, and I think they're very easy things to refine. I refuse to believe that we're getting another 3-point performance out of Michael Porter Jr. I just don't think we will. I'm not saying he's going to drop a 40 piece, but I don't think he's going to only score 3 points again. So with those little refinements, this could be a blowout by Denver.
Well, and also,
it really could.
And also when you look at this team, and we talked about it earlier, but when you mentioned Jamal getting in guys' faces, that's something that we don't see from Jamal. We just don't see an animated Jamal.
I love it.
But I think he does know that his legacy is bolstered by his playoff success. Mm-hmm. And last year he was hurt, Right now, I mean, he might have twisted his ankle a little bit, but he finished the game fine.
I was definitely nervous.
And you and Shelby, Shelby was asking how he looked. He was walking with his dad and his brother after the game, and you're not really supposed to, certainly not interview players there, but even, depending on the relationship, and I think he and I have a different one than I thought we did based on the headlock he put me in a few weeks back. But still, he didn't even make eye contact. Like, he didn't even see me. It's one of those where,
right.
And so I was like, hey, Maul, but he was walking slowly, but wasn't favoring. He was just walking slowly like guys do after games when they're a little banged up. Also, Jamal's not the biggest treatment guy, but based on the amount of time when this happened, he had to have gotten some sort of treatment after he went and talked to us because the timing just didn't make sense, or sat and ate for a long time. But what I was getting at was seeing that, assuming MPJ is back and in the groove, these guys are now, they're playing for each other and they want to prove everyone wrong.
Yep.
And so I think that matters.
Who's closing tonight, MPJ or Westbrook?
I think it's MPJ tonight.
And after you guys answer that, in all caps, who do you guys want to finish the game?
Oh, who do you want to finish the game? You want MPJ to finish the game because...
Well, yeah, because then that means he's
playing defense, he's knocking shots down, and he's not doing anything crazy.
Yeah. I want it to be...
Or Russ isn't in there to do anything crazy.
I want it to be MPJ. I think it will be Westbrook.
Maybe. I think it might be MPJ if it's his night. We'll see.
I hope you're right.
He's bigger. He's going to get more.
This is one of those times I hope I'm wrong. I hope that it is MPJ that's closing tonight.
Me too.
Because that means that he's on fire and they absolutely need that.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the rest of the playoffs.
Anything surprise you?
I did not think the Memphis Grizzlies were going to get a bare bottom spanking the way that they did. I thought they would at least... maybe a slap on the wrist and like a you shouldn't do that, little timeout in the corner. I did not think they were going to get whooped like that. I mean, that was like wooden spoon wire hanger. Wabam, wabam. That was bad. That was ugly. That was not okay. I really need the Grizzlies to give us a series there. I do have to, of course,
pat yourself
do a little one of these and basically just tell Lakers fans to just shut up. I had tweeted like my predictions. I think I said Nuggets in 6. That still at this point doesn't look that bad. I said that the Bucks Pacers won. That one was tough. I did say that the Bucks were going to be winning over the Pacers. Dame is making a return, so I still like that. I also said that I liked the Golden State Warriors to advance to the Western Conference Finals. They're playing at a very high level. I still like that. Lakers, I said that you would get upset by the Timberwolves. None of the Lakers fans liked that. They said, Lakers in 4, Lakers sweep. Blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, I saw a lot of things with the Timberwolves that I really, really liked. And I do think that it's going to be a tough series for the Lakers. I don't know why anyone thought this was going to be a walk in the park for the Lakers. Of course, one game in, a lot can change and a lot of things can look different. But so far, all of my predictions, if you will, are looking pretty good.
Yeah, a couple things that stood out. One, I looked at the box score after I looked at the bet that my buddy and I missed. I'm like, SGA only had 15 MVP. You know what? Oh, well, they won by 50, so
right.
You didn't have to do that much. And then as the Warriors were beating the Rockets, because they were down early, and then I flipped it on in the second half, and they were up 11 or whatever, and they just kind of kept that margin. You got to remember that Jimmy Butler is awesome in the playoffs. Draymond's still Draymond, and Steph Curry is unbelievable, even when he's being guarded, taking the craziest shot where I think Kevin Harlan said the angle on that, like, that's impossible, that shouldn't go in, the math on that. And then post game, my favorite comment, and Steve Kerr's high on the list of just favorite quotes in sports and favorite coaches. But he was asked by a reporter about the Rockets' physicality. Right. And he said, I totally forgot to tell the team that Houston's really physical and great on the glass. Thanks for the reminder. I'm going to mention that before game 2.
Listen, my predictions for the playoffs.
Now, look, the series aren't over after one game.
They're not. And so again, I'm not gonna boast too much because the Lakers could absolutely clobber the Timberwolves in game 2, and
we still expect this to be a long series.
Yeah, who knows? But I'm more just clowning the people that said that the Lakers, like, they were making, there was a lot of people out there that when I said the Timberwolves could likely upset the Lakers, a lot of people were speaking to me like that was so never going to happen and so far from reality. And I was just like an absolute moron. But I really don't know if people are giving enough credit to this Timberwolves team. They are good AF.
Yeah, they're really good, and they're built to guard other really good teams.
Yeah.
And so they can, and then they've got a superstar in Anthony Edwards, but they can make life hard on LeBron and Luka.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm worried about the Lakers, assuming LeBron, and you can't bet against this, dude, assuming LeBron just stays LeBron for one more year, with Luka now fully engaged, in shape, you're not worrying about summer basketball stuff, Olympic stuff. I mean, I guess I don't know how close Slovenia was even to making the Olympics or what he did last summer, but clearly after the finals, he was worn out. I'm not saying Luka won't have a good offseason, but if Luka and LeBron get on the same page, because the one thing we know about LeBron is he doesn't skip days, even when he's enjoying himself and drinking a glass of red wine, which seems to be pretty constant. He doesn't miss a lot of days staying in the best physical condition of anyone on the planet, especially for a 40-year-old. And so if they have both those guys next year, Austin Reeves another year playing, and whatever tweaks they make to the roster, and I don't know, they don't have a lot of room salary cap wise, that next year is when the Lakers are really, I mean, look, they finished third and they might still win the series.
Yeah, the Lakers
but
are still great.
It just feels like a full year, and also LeBron will be able to pace himself differently, or maybe pace himself similarly, but have even more relaxing moments knowing that Luka's got us.
Yeah.
So I can take off a week here and there. And he did it.
He doesn't have to do it all himself.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do it all himself, and doesn't have to worry about, is Anthony Davis going to be healthy to do it while I'm not there, which he was 2 years ago, and that's why they won 76 games. Or rather, why 76. Anthony played 76 in 23, 24.
Right.
And that made LeBron's life easier. Now they still got swept by the Nuggets. But I'd be worried about the Lakers more next year than this year, even if they do get back into this. And I say get back into, they're only down a game. But Timberwolves are built to beat.
Yeah. And again, I don't know why. Well, I do know why. Lakers fans just hate to see me on X because they know I'm about to start
formerly Twitter.
My mouth, but formerly known as Twitter. But all I did was tweet my hot takes, and I said, or not even hot takes, I said, here are my predictions for the playoffs. Let's see how this ages. And it, of course, was Lakers fans that immediately inserted their opinion. And the biggest thing, and what I said was, I prefer the Timberwolves bench over the Lakers bench. And somebody commented back, a Lakers fan, of course, and said, what are you even talking about? You don't know anything. The Lakers bench is so much better. Whose bench was better in game one?
The Timberwolves, and it wasn't close, especially with what Alexander Walker does, what Naz Reid with 23 points.
What do you know it, BK?
And Dante DiVincenzo.
Where Liv Moots was right.
Dante's been in big games, obviously, some Knicks playoffs, but certainly at Villanova.
Right.
And I want to say even with the Bucks too, right?
And also it's a preference. Whatever I like doesn't mean that it's it doesn't mean it's gospel. I said I like the bench with the Timberwolves better. And of course, just finding ways to discredit what I say. People said, I have no idea what you're saying. The Lakers have a way better bench. Didn't seem that way in game one. It also didn't appear that the Lakers are going to sweep in this series. Like all of the DMs that I got were saying so. But, time will tell. The series, I have always said this series is going the distance and it's going to be exceptionally entertaining given the talent on both of these teams. But I gave a slight advantage and edge to the Timberwolves, and people just thought I was being a Lakers hater. No, I'm just trying to make money on my bets. Okay. It's called head versus heart. If my heart were the one involved here, I would have taken the under on every Lakers player, but that's not reasonable. Instead, I just said, I think the Timberwolves will cause some problems, make it tough, make it competitive. And I do think ultimately they're going to come out on top of this series. It could go 7, but we know the Timberwolves do just fine in 7 games on the road.
Yeah. Yep. We've seen it first.
We've seen it and we felt it in my heart.
I do predict
in my soul.
It will not go 8. It could go 7.
That is something we do know for sure. It will not. None of these series will go 8.
Maybe the better question to ask is, across the 8 series.
Yes.
8 series. Who do you like the most to bounce back in game 2?
Ooh, which team?
Yeah, just to win game 2. I'm not even saying win the series.
That's a great question. Team.
I don't like the Grizzlies.
No, God, the Grizzlies need to just maybe hang it up after that first one. That was so bad. I would say that the team most likely to bounce back in game 2. I'm trying to think of all the teams that lost.
You get the Bucks back, if Dame plays.
Well, if Dame's playing, for sure the Bucks.
You like the Bucks more than the Lakers at home to win game 2, the Rockets at home to win game 2, the Clippers to steal a game tonight.
I think that the Warriors could win game 2 again.
Yeah.
I think the Lakers are good for a bounce back in game 2.
You're going to get one of those guys to put a cape on, if not both.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you almost need it.
Yeah, because what were their final numbers?
It was pretty evenly matched, actually. I just had it pulled up. You had
Luka, but Luka had 37. LeBron had 19.
Yeah, okay, so outside of Luka, it was not. I mean, you got nothing from
16.
Jackson Hayes. Rui only gave you 9. You got 16 from Austin Reeves. The bench gave you a whopping total of.
Finney Smith plays 32 minutes and gets you 3 points. You get Gabe Vincent, Gabe Vincent was great on the run to the finals. He wasn't really great in the finals against the Nuggets, but Gabe Vincent just kind of looks like a guy out there. And then Jarrett Vanderbilt, who's healthy now, still didn't give you much. And our guy Dalton Connect, I saw he just had a birthday, the Denver native. He only played 3 minutes. Your first round pick, who at times, it's kind of gone like this. And I know they tried to trade him and all that, but
so the Lakers bench gave you a combined, I think, 13 points.
Not great.
And
Naz Reid
off the bench had 23 by himself.
Yeah, I was just looking at what Luka and LeBron's. So Luka
I'm just saying that confirms what I was saying earlier, which is I give the advantage. I said, oh my gosh, run the clip. No, not right now, but we will run it at some point. I said on a show with you, BK, that I believed the X factor in the Lakers Timberwolves series was going to be the bench. I think we're seeing exactly.
Although Jaden McDaniels getting
game 1 alone.
Jaden McDaniels getting 25 is maybe not something that they're expecting. They're expecting Ant to get 20 to 30 plus. Randall gets you 20 to 30. Even Mike Conley will go off for a big night here and there. Rudy's not going to do anything. He only had 2 points on offense, and he only had 6 rebounds, but was plus 14. But if Jaden McDaniels is going to get you 20 plus 25 points, Timberwolves are going to be hard to beat every game.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think they're
conversely, though, if Austin Reeves does that, that could be why the Lakers win game 2.
Yeah. Okay, so team most likely to bounce back. I'm going to say, did the Pistons lose?
How about this? This stat I heard today. The Pistons have lost 15 straight playoff games.
That's disgusting.
So that means
that's sad and disgusting.
The last game they won was in 2008, and I want to say Chauncey was still on the team then, right? Because did Chauncey get traded here in 2009? Is that math right? When Chauncey got here?
Maybe
2008 though was the last time they won a playoff game. So they've since been in. They lost however many games to get out of that series. Then lost 3 straight playoff series, the few times they've been in, and now lose game 1. So I'm not going to pick the Pistons just yet in the Garden. Maybe they win. Fair. Maybe they win game 3. But once you switch courts, it's not any fun to play this game.
So yeah, I guess I would say the team that is most likely to bounce back in game 2 is the Lakers.
I think it's the Rockets.
Really?
I just think now that they understand playoff basketball a little more at home.
That's fair.
But the Warriors could still certainly beat it. Like, I'm just picking the Rockets, and I can't pick the Bucks yet, even though they kind of made it a game, because you got to see what Dame is like.
I was gonna say that's pending Damian Lillard.
Yeah, when's the last time he played?
It's been a minute. I mean, at least 2 weeks. At least, maybe 3.
Let me see here. His game log. This is always exciting when I look stuff up.
Also, I gave Shelby Harris a really tough time when I walked into the studio.
He hadn't played since March 18th, so he hasn't been on the court in a month. Yeah.
I gave Shelby Harris a really hard time when I walked into the studio, saying like it is absolutely inexcusable and despicable that Kyle Kuzma only scored
the dumb trade.
Only scored 0 points in a playoff game, and then by the end of that game, Michael Porter Jr. had only scored 3, and I was like, wow, okay.
We have a lot of cool,
both inexcusable.
We have a lot of cool random stuff in the studio. This is a new addition. I'm trying to get it outside of the studio.
Is that Shelby Harris?
That's a Shelby Harris signed Browns mini helmet.
Love it.
Found it at Goodwill for $3.99. Not the signed part, the helmet.
I was gonna say they only have Shelby going for $3.99 at Goodwill. That's crazy.
We donated some stuff to Goodwill, and then I went in to see what they had. And I'm like, oh, Browns mini helmet. I can definitely get this signed. So
yeah, you can.
Shelby signed it.
You know a guy who knows a guy.
I mean, would I rather have Myles Garrett? Sure, but
no,
beggars
Shelby
can't be
all the way.
choosers.
Okay, well, this has been another Guerrilla Sports Off Court. I'm Liv Moods. That is Brandon Cristal, and this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Shout out to our friends over at Trusted American. You can head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money. Also, we will have you covered for a post-game show following Game 2, Clippers Nuggets. I will be here in studio to go live and talk through everything, and then I will also be touching base with BK while he is at
I'll
Ball
be there.
Arena. He will be getting us all sorts of post-game presser footage. So will our producer Jet. He will be over there as well. So yeah, tune in tonight. Right after the game is over, I will be in studio going live, talking all things game 2, hopefully with a smile on my face. But if not, of course, you're still going to get a full post-game show. And we've also got merch live on our website.
We might even have a picture if you scroll down, Jet. I can't swear that we do, but we had it last show. There's a merch tab that I think we can show everybody. Shop.gorillasports.net.
There we go.
Check that out. Welcome to the Gorilla Sports store.
And with the Nugget stuff, we had to put a little Lakers something or other in there. Had to. Well, it was mandatory.
And so this question was asked on after going to Nuggets, or really Clippers shoot around. The Nuggets didn't shoot this morning.
Yeah.
Came in and hopped on the end of off field with Scott and Nate, and we were talking about what was our favorite shirt. Do you have a favorite one, or is it without question Luck the Fakers?
I mean, Luck the Fakers is pretty great, but I would have to say it's Get Russ a Ring for sure.
Okay.
Just because now y'all are pals. Ever. Yeah. So
getting Russ a ring means that everyone on the Nuggets gets a ring.
Exactly. So it's like a 2-for-1. Buy one, get one.
You know what's going to be the most talked about thing this offseason beyond what do you do with Michael Porter Jr. potentially?
Do you keep Russ?
I think is going to be the number one thing. Because like, if you ask right now, everyone's like, yeah, hell yeah. But let's see at the end of the series.
We'll see how it goes. So far, I like what we see. He makes mistakes, but then he makes up for it in big ways. So you can't be mad about that. And hopefully the Nuggets bring it tonight in game 2. Hopefully MPJ, you get a little bit more out of him. And they're still committed to the defense to get some stops because this Clippers team is legit. So thank you guys for tuning in to another Gorilla Sports Off Court. We'll see you tonight for a post-game live reaction show. I'm Liv Moods. That's Brandon Cristal. Go Nuggets, and we'll see you tonight.